So the valuation, Matthew says 2 trillion, is still a long way away. But the profit numbers, there's no doubt about it. They are really quite splendid at 111 million. At 111 million, that's the data that we got yesterday. What do you make of the reveal, the big reveal?
Now, Manas, the earnings are very good earnings, definitely, and everyone was expecting that. At least they were
billion, not million. My apologies.
Yeah, sorry. Everyone was expecting good results from Aramco. Now, these come a bit surprising. They're definitely very good news for everyone, and especially for the markets in the Saudi. In Saudi and specifically SABIC, if we're going to look at it at this point in time, because when we're looking at a company which is acquiring another, and in this case it's Aramco acquiring SABIC, Aramco making such huge profits, and SABIC being the top company profitability-wise on the Tadawul, it's something that would draw investors' attention. There are two big companies that are actually in their own sectors, let's put it that way, because we can't compare Aramco to SABIC. But still, when we see that kind of acquisition happening, it definitely triggers some sort of a positive sentiment and confidence to investors to go and invest in the energy sector in the Saudi market at this point in time.
Marie, the idea of a lot of capital flowing into the hands of the Saudi government and that they might redeploy it in other ways, you consider that Saudi government entities own quite a lot of stock on the Tadawul. I mean, could this be perhaps a sign that some of the capital gets redirected back into Saudi equities, ironically?
Now, the thing is, when we look at cash or whatever liquidity available with governments, it doesn't always have to be invested in the stock markets in particular. In Saudi, we've heard a lot about infrastructure enhancements and stuff like that. So it doesn't always have to be routed back to the exchange.
Maybe some of it could get redirected.
True. And specifically now, if we look at the public investment fund, the PIF, it's also something, they're getting liquidity in, and this gives them the long-term sort of investment, whether to the government or to the investment funds, in order to be able to grow further with their infrastructures and their stability around economically.
Now, we know you like a bank. So let's pivot to the U.A.E. banks. We've done a couple of pieces of, we have Edmund Christou, who is our bank's research analyst, and he's talking about profitability, and this is what I want to gauge your sensitivity to this. He reckons profitability is going to slow down this year from around 11% to maybe 5 to 7%. Who or where is the weakest link in the bank chain?
Who or where it's the weakest. And now we've definitely seen a lot of consolidation, so we're going to just get away from those, because when consolidation happens, we see a lot of strength in the entities. Okay. So I'm not going to talk ADCB, I'm not going to talk UMB at this stage, not Emirates NBD, although they have a lot of things going around at this point in time. But we'd probably look at the smaller banks, where we have seen a lot of some issues or some things that were actually of concern to investors. I'm not going to name in particular anything. It's going to be a bit tricky at this point in time. But as your reporters or your analysts have mentioned, we have been extremely bullish on the banking sector, and we are not trying to withdraw that at this point in time. But there's always a point in time where you need to slow down with your investments and try to look on profit taking and being a bit conservative on how you look at certain things. We've seen banks going extremely rallying in the past quarter or so, and it's about time, I think, we start booking profits and monitoring what's going to happen, especially with the new changes that are going to take place.
Closing thoughts on crude oil and how that might play into some of your calls for some of the Gulf equities? I mean, it's creeping back up. Arguably, this is good news.
Now we have seen a bit of stability around that. Even with the changes in the oil prices, we're still a bit comfortable with how the effect is going around on the Gulf equities in particular. And if we look at the oil and gas sectors in particular in the region, whether it's in the U.A.E. or Saudi Arabia, we're a bit. We believe that investors and governments and companies have sort of absorbed that sort of change in the crude and in the production that we're seeing around.